I think I got whiplash after listening to this album for the first time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am Molly, and in this video I'm going to be going over my top 10 albums released in 2023. Now, this list was very difficult to make. There were a lot of fantastic albums that were released this year, but I think I finally managed to narrow it down to 10 that I just found myself returning to a lot. I thought they brought a lot of uniqueness and creativity to the world of music. So yeah, I figured I would go ahead and share my list here on my channel. So without further ado, let's get on into my favorite albums of 2023. Coming in at number 10 on my list is Moments of Clarity by Narrowhead. This record is great. It really encapsulates this amazing 90s alt-rock energy that it has with its tone. It definitely does not sound like it was released in 2023, and I mean that as a compliment. It just has this sort of older style to it. They blend a lot of melodic moments with a ton of harshness as well, and I love that contrast. I love the track The World. This one has a really unique sort of electronic sounding tone to it that really stood out. Also, the track Gearhead is a standout. That one brought a ton of heaviness, and Flush and Solitude I think is my favorite song off of this whole record. That one is amazing. It really reminds me of Around the Fur era Deftones, kind of that similar style. But this whole album is fantastic. Like I said, it just really encapsulates a certain sound to it that I didn't hear from any other albums that came out this year. And yeah, for that reason it really stood out, and it made number 10 on my list. Coming in at number 9 is War of Being by TesseracT. This record is beautifully crafted. It's so smooth from beginning to end, and this one, what really stood out to me is how intricately they weave melodicness with some incredibly heavy moments too. There's such technical precision to this album, and it just sounds amazing. Natural Disaster as the opener is really compelling. It kind of has this almost eerie quality to it. Again, very atmospheric, very open almost with its sound. There's these little whispered vocals too that they sprinkle in from time to time that, again, it just adds this sort of haunted quality to it, which I love. I also really like the closing track Sacrifice too. This one, the guitars stand out. They've got such a great tone to them across this whole album, but just a fantastic project overall. I really like what I've heard of TesseracT's music, and this album definitely stands up in their discography. I think it's brilliantly done. The production is amazing. Definitely check it out if you have not heard it. At number 8 on my list, I've picked Raven by Kelela. This record caught me off guard. I kind of decided to listen to it on a whim one day, and from the opening track, it is so compelling. It just sucks you in, and you end up listening to the whole thing without even realizing it. It's such a smoothly done album. The production is immaculate, and I love the transitions too between all of the tracks. For that reason, it kind of just flows as one album. It's hard to pick one standout track from this thing because they're all interwoven so well. I will say though that the opening track, Washed Away, just sets such a beautiful tone for this record. I think if I had to pick a favorite, it's that one, but the whole thing just works so amazingly together. And there's a lot of themes too around water with this record, and there's a very refreshing sort of smooth flowing quality to its sound. Just brilliantly done, and I think it's absolutely magnificent. Coming in at number 7 is The Death We Seek by Currents. I think I got whiplash after listening to this album for the first time. This thing is absolutely incredible. It's a monster of an album. It brings so much sound to it. It's very visceral and raw, and yet it's so well produced at the same time. The contrast on this thing is great, and they just blend it all and they make it so cohesive. The title track as the opener I think is absolutely brilliant. It sets a great tone for this record, and then it goes right into track 2, Living in Tragedy, which is I think my favorite song on this whole album. This thing is absolutely mind-blowing. If you don't listen to this entire album, definitely go listen to Living in Tragedy, the second track. The vocals are crazy. One of the craziest vocal deliveries I've heard in a song that came out this year. The second verse is absolutely mind-melting with how intense his vocals go. I also want to shout out the track So Alone on this album. That one does a great job highlighting those melodic moments that I was talking about. I really like how that one goes really heavy on the verses, but then the chorus comes in and it brings a lot of softness, almost a tenderness to this record at times. But fantastic album from start to finish. The production is just incredible, and I absolutely loved every second of this thing. At number 6, I've picked The Above by Code Orange. This album has so much variety. It's absolutely wild. There is definitely something for everyone on this album. If I wanted a more melodic, tender moment, I found myself really being drawn toward Mirror. I love Reba's vocals on that one too. And then when I wanted that intensity, The Mask of Sanity Slips, that one just goes so hard. I love the vocal delivery on that one and the rawness and the aggression that comes through. Also Take Shape featuring Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. That one is really fun. Again, such an intense vocal delivery, but it's somehow balanced out by this almost playful edge that this album has, which I kind of like. It's like they're not taking themselves too seriously in a way. And I think my favorite song on this whole album is But a Dream. This one, I love the bass at the start. It's very reminiscent to me of the track Dirty by Korn. And there is like a strong sort of 90s alt rock vibe to this whole album. They go hard at certain moments, but then on other tracks, they kind of bring a new sound to Code Orange, which I really dig on this album. Alright, so now we're really getting into my top 5 favorite albums of the year. So coming in at number 5 on my list is Purge by Godflesh. This album is so heavy, it's so sludgy and just dark and dense with its sound. I absolutely love it. There's a lot of repetition to this album too. It has a lot of these patterns that they use over and over again in each of the tracks, and I find it works really well actually. There's something weirdly relaxing about this album for me when I listen to it. I really like the track Landlord. This one is a great example of them kind of using a sort of like weirdly electronic beat sound, but then adding on top of that. And The Father just has this amazing hauntedness to it, such a strong atmospheric tone that I love. And the closing track, You Are the Judge, the Jury, and the Executioner, man, that one brings so much heaviness to it, very drawn out and slow, but yet crushing at the same time, like absolutely immense with its sound. I also want to make a quick note that this is my introduction to Godflesh. Up until hearing Purge, I had not heard any of their albums, so I definitely want to get into their music and hear more from them because Purge was fantastic. I absolutely loved this record. At number 4 on my list, I've picked Desire, I Want to Turn Into You by Caroline Polachek. This, in my opinion, is pop music at its absolute peak. I think this record is fantastically done. There is so much variety on this thing. It's very catchy and earwormy in that fantastic pop way, and yet Caroline brings so much uniqueness to her sound too. There's like this avant-garde quality that she has to her music, and her style is very singular. I don't really know other artists making pop music like this. The opening track, Welcome to My Island, I think is my favorite song on this whole record. Just absolutely fantastic. I like the vocal change up too, how on the verses it's more sharp and it brings a strong rhythmic quality to it, and then on the chorus it smooths out a little bit. It kind of opens up with its sound. I also love Billions too. That one's certainly a standout. Beautiful song, just very interesting. I like all of the vocal distortion that she utilizes on that one, but such a compelling album overall. I think this thing is absolutely magnificent. The production's great. It sounds so good, and yeah, that's why it came in at number 4 on my list for the year. Alright, so now we're moving into the final 3 albums of the year for me. So coming in at number 3 is Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. This album, in my opinion, is a straight masterpiece. I did a review for this record back when it came out in May of this year, and I absolutely loved it. I kind of hit on more points on this album in that review, but to give a quick synopsis here in this video, I just think it is impeccably done. The production is on another level with this record. They bring so much variety to the sound. It just blows my mind every time I listen to it. Right off the back, opening it with Chokehold, just such an immense track, and then it goes right into track 2, The Summoning, which just has so much variety in that one track alone. It's amazing. I also really love the track Vor too. That one might be my favorite on the whole record. It just brings so much intensity to it, so much heaviness, and it's like this release of energy on the album. But yeah, Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. I thought this was going to be my album of the year back in May when they released this one, but there were 2 albums that actually surpassed this one for me. So coming in at number 2 on my list is The Harmony Codex by Steven Wilson. This record is layered, it's intricate, it's truly a work of art, I would say, beautifully crafted and put together. For that reason, there's really no standout tracks on this one for me. It just works so cohesively from beginning to end. Even though there's a lot of different styles and sounds that he utilizes, it's just woven together in this beautiful patchwork of sounds, if that makes sense. Inclination as the opening track track is great. Definitely a strong, almost 9 Inch Nails vibe to this one, sort of an electronic undercurrent. And then Beautiful Scarecrow also has such a dark, haunted quality to it. I like toward the end there, it stays pretty minimalistic and then they just bring all of this energy all of a sudden. It's very unexpected. I think it's really, really well done how they do that. And I'm not very familiar with a lot of Porcupine Tree's discography or Steven Wilson's stuff outside of Porcupine Tree. This is kind of my introduction actually to his solo work and I love it. I definitely want to check out more. I just think it's an amazingly done album. Definitely go listen to it if you haven't heard it. All right, so we have arrived at my number 1 album pick for 2023, which is Alchemy for the Dead by Spotlights. Now, one of you suggested this one to me a while back on Instagram when I was asking about what your favorite albums of the year were for suggestions. Someone came through on me with this one. One person recommended this album, and they clearly know my taste in music very well because this thing is exactly what I like from music. It's dark, it's dense, it's atmospheric, it's kind of slowed down and haunted. It really plays up the contrast so well of the heaviness with a sort of ethereal, floaty quality to its tone as well. The second track, The Alchemist, I think is my favorite on this whole album. This thing is just really slow. It kind of has this sludgy quality almost. With the way they've tuned the guitars, it's just absolutely brilliant. But then it kind of has this lightness too. Like I said, I don't know how they get that fusion so perfect, but they do across this whole record. And then I have to shout out to the track Sunset Burial because that one has a change up they do a little over, I think it's halfway through the song. It takes on a completely different tone. And I think the change up and the transition into that is just impeccably done. I also love the track False Gods. This one uses a saxophone at times, which brings a sort of jazzy quality to it. The vocals go so hard on this one as well. Also Ballad in the Mirror too. That one has more of a melodic edge to it, but that intensity is still there. There's like this underlying energy across this whole album that's very palpable. Definitely go give Alchemy for the Dead a listen if you have not heard it, and I just think it's an amazing record. That's why it's my number 1 pick for the year. But yeah, that's going to conclude my list for my top 10 albums of 2023. Definitely let me know what you thought of my picks down in the comments, if you've heard any of these albums, if you liked them or not, and also comment what your top albums for the year were. I would love to check those out. But yeah, as usual, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned, and I will see you in the next video.